Tim Krul, Fraser Forster, is this 2025 or 2006? What's going on here? Let's get stuck in.
Heroes celebrate. They have done it.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris back with a rumour has it video where we're talking about players hopefully coming to the football club. This window has not quite opened up the way we wanted it to. This is a little mini window that closes on the 10th of June. The movement is very, very slow at Newcastle United right now. It doesn't seem to be anybody really coming in. It's all about goalkeepers at the moment, if you believe what you're hearing and what you're reading. James Trafford seems to be the name that's getting most of the coverage, which seems to probably be the more plausible one. We're all disappointed about potentially missing out on other targets in this small bit of the window. The window then shuttered up, was back up on the 16th of June. So we're going to have to wait to see probably what happens before the season kicks off to see what Newcastle United are actually going to do with player recruitment, and hopefully they have a strong window, because if they don't, they'll be hell on. But there is some names being linked to the football club, which is really weird. It isn't Christmas, and I am not Jacob Marley. I am not going to come and haunt you with ghosts of the past, but ghosts of the past is what I'm talking about with Newcastle United. So technically I am, but don't worry, you're not going to be visited by 3 ghosts, but maybe by 2. So former players have been linked to the football club, and it's all about the homegrown quota for the Champions League. So just to explain this before we go into the names that have been linked. So the UEFA rules state that Newcastle must have a minimum of 4 players who are registered with the football club for a minimum of 3 years between the ages of 15 and 21. Now, it looks very likely that Sean Longstaff will leave the football club. So that's one gone. And obviously, Elliot Anderson has already gone. So that's another one gone there as well. And there is a lot of talk that John Ruddy may possibly be let go, contracts done and up. I think Gillespie's contract runs out at the end of the season as well. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but I don't think he's classed as a homegrown player. But this brings me to the names of the past. So I'm going to throw these names out for you. Tim Krul, if you remember, Tim Krul was excellent for Newcastle back in the day. He was a young keeper coming through when we had Shea Given and Steve Harper. And then obviously when Shea Given moved on to Manchester City, Tim Krul stepped in as number 2. Then he kind of took over Harper as number 1. And he was excellent for us for a long time, was Tim Krul. Tim Krul played 160 times for Newcastle and some excellent performances. I certainly remember that one against Spurs when he was a one-man stopping machine. Capped 15 times for Holland as well. Left the football club in 2017, kind of moved around to a few different clubs, went to Brighton, never really worked from there, ended up at Norwich, had a real long spell at Norwich, 163 appearances at Norwich in the Championship and in the Premier League as well, then moved on to Luton and obviously was let go from Luton. So he's a free agent at the moment, is Tim Krul, and he's 37 years old, and he could easily fill that quota because he was at the football club as a young player from the ages of 2006 to 2017. So he does fill that quota for us as well. So that's one player that has been linked to the football club. The other player is the giant Geordie himself, Fraser Forster. Now, weirdly enough, Fraser Forster never actually made a competitive first-team appearance for Newcastle. He was always on the fringes. He was the backup to Tim Krul back in the day. Monster of a man, 6'7". He's 37-year-old as well. A Geordie as well, born in Hexham, was Fraser Forster. And he might want to come home. This might be a great move for Fraser Forster in many ways because he gets to kind of finish his career up at home at his own hometown club. He's kind of there to make the numbers up, I suppose, really, in an ideal world. Are you going to have Trafford and Pope as your 1 and 2, or is it going to be Trafford and Dubravka? We don't know what's going to happen in the goalkeeper situation, but whoever these keepers are is probably going to be 3rd choice goalkeeper. But where Fraser Forster really made his name was he moved on at a few loan spells. He was a Stockport, Bristol, Norwich, and then he ended up going to Celtic, and he had a massively successful spell at Celtic. That's my dad's team, and he loved Fraser Forster. There was one game in particular against Barcelona where I think Messi was calling him the yellow wall, I think it was, or Pep Guardiola was calling him the yellow wall, because a bit like that Spurs game for Krul, just Barcelona could not get past him. 236 appearances Fraser Forster racked up for Celtic before he moved to Southampton. 162 appearances, ended up at Norwich, same as Tim Krul as well, 42 appearances, and he's most recently been at Spurs, 34 appearances for Spurs, especially when they went through their goalkeeping crisis. They kind of brought him out of a cryostasis, did their big Fraser Forster. So these are two names that have been linked to us to come in the goalkeeping scenario. Another name that has been thrown in there as well, who's a fair bit younger than these lot, is Freddy Woodman. If you remember Freddy Woodman, at one point we thought he was going to be the James Trafford of Newcastle. I thought he was going to be the England's #1 and everything else. Everyone was really excited about him. I remember him getting that debut against Manchester United, and Ronaldo scored a really dodgy hat-trick past him in his first game back at Manchester United. But he is probably unlikely to arrive in a third or fourth choice capacity because he wants first team football at 28 years old. And in all fairness to Freddy Woodman, he's had a good career down in the Championship. I think he was at Swansea, I think it was, and Preston, and he's done quite well in the lower league. So maybe Freddy Woodman might get a club where he can be the #1 goalkeeper, or at least #2, pushing for #1. So I think it's probably more likely that either Krul or Forster, or maybe even both of them, come in to replace possibly a John Ruddy that moves on. We don't know what's going to happen with Vlachodimos. I mean, Nick Pope's obviously attracting interest from Leeds. Vlachodimos loan deals we're looking at to maybe move him on. The Vlachodimos one is weird, very, very weird. It's a bit like a financial loophole of pull, like a Wolf of Wall Street style loophole, where Vlachodimos came to us apparently for 20 or 30 million quid and something the other way. God knows what happened there, why that deal was done. But Vlachodimos, is he got a future at the club? I don't think so. I don't think Eddie Howe even wanted him. I think it was just part of this weird Anderson deal. So maybe Vlachodimos might get a loan abroad, get him off the books in terms of his wages, then look to sell him in permanent in the summer. Maybe Ruddy will move on. I think Ruddy was very good behind the scenes, maybe as a coaching element. So maybe there'll be an element for him to retire and maybe come in as a coach. I don't know. But with Krul and Forster, they could come in to fatten out those numbers for the Champions League requirement as well. But it isn't exactly the kind of transfers we want to be talking about as Newcastle fans right now. We want a right winger, we want a right centre back, we want a backup centre forward. There is names linked, as there always is, left, right, and centre, but it is feeling a little bit flat and a little bit slow at the minute. It is only the 4th of June as I'm recording this, 5th of June as you're watching it. So there is time for Newcastle to do something in this small mini window. But I would be surprised if Newcastle do anything in this window. Maybe James Trafford could be the one that comes in this window to get that one done early. But I think it's most likely Newcastle are going to start doing their business when the second part of this window opens on the 16th of June. But let us know in the comments below what you guys think about the ghosts of the past. I mean, would you be upset seeing these two players come in? They're technically just there to fatten out the squad and meet a quota. They've both got knowledge of the club. Tim Krul was here a long time, served the club really well. Has always had a good reception when he's come back with other teams as well. Tim Krul's always spoke highly of Newcastle as well. Fraser Forster, again, is a Geordie lad. He knows what the club means. He's a Newcastle fan himself. His whole family is. So I've got no problem with either one of these or both of these coming in. If Ruddy disappears, in a retirement or becomes a coach or whatever, Vlachodimos gets sent out on loan, and these two come in, under Nick Pope and Trafford, or Dubravka and Trafford, whoever's going to be. I don't know what's going to happen with Gillespie. I really, really don't. Nobody sings life as a roller coaster like Gillespie in the squad, so maybe that's going to be his new position possibly. He could be karaoke coach, who knows? But he doesn't play football. Seems like a lovely lad, to be fair, so I don't want to dig him out too much, but he's not playing football. He's got the best job in the world, to be fair. He really, really is. Mark could be Gillespie. Mark's been knackered for years, and I think if I put Mark on the sticks, he might be a bit better than Gillespie, to be fair. But God knows what's going to happen with Gillespie when his contract runs out. Will he leave? Will he stay? Will he get a renewal? I don't know. He seems to be like behind the scenes, so God knows what's going to happen there. But let us know in the comments below what you guys think about this. More keepers, fuck me, more keepers. Where's the outfield players? But I get this one. I understand it. It is a bit weird, but I think there's a lot of clubs in the Champions League that'll have to do this kind of thing, bring players back. I mean, you can talk about Jose Perez. People are talking about coming back, but he's not a homegrown player. We bought him from Tenerife, I think it was, wasn't it? We bought him. So, but that's a strange one as well. Adam Armstrong's another name you could throw out there potentially. I don't know. Would there be room for Adam Armstrong in the squad? He's not been linked. He's not particularly that good of a player, is he really? In the Premier League, he runs around a lot, but he doesn't really have a lot of quality. So, would he even get a game? I don't know. But plenty of eyes on Newcastle United's transfer activity, or lack thereof, so far in this mini window. But this one just seems to be a bit of a loophole kind of an arrangement anyway. But just thought we'd jump on and do a quick video about it. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember to like and subscribe. We're really, really close to 10,500 subs. We're only about 39 or 38 away. So smash that button if you haven't already. Recommend us to family and friends. We'll be back with some more transfer banter soon. There's loads of stories going on. I'm really, really desperate for Newcastle to get some bodies in, get some quality bodies in, because it doesn't sound great at the moment. I saw a great video from Craig Hope the other day, just talking about how it's not good enough by the football club. And, I applauded Craig for his honesty. I like Craig's honesty. There's a lot of journalists who don't want to criticise because they don't want to upset the club potentially, but Craig's never scared to say what he thinks, and he's right. It's not great at the minute. You've got an outgoing sporting director, an outgoing CEO, obviously for health reasons, but we haven't got those bodies in upstairs. It's all fallen on Eddie and Nixon. Are we acting too slow? Are we missing these targets? Or are we never going to move in this part of the window? We don't know, because the club don't talk to you anymore, don't give you ideas of what's going on. And I get that in a way, but in another way it's frustrating. But anyway, we'll be with you through the summer, guys, trying to talk about transfers as much as we can. Keep it evermore. Have a belt, whatever you're doing, and we'll see you later. Cheers.
Heroes celebrate. They have done it.